Hello everyone, it's me again, Marcus, and today I'm going to show you how to create a input bound widget that shows you the label of your button. So in this case, if I hit play, you see that there's a secondary, interact, fire, jump, everything. It shows me which button to press, and when I switch over to my gamepad and use my gamepad for movement, it automatically switches, and if I hit the X key on this Xbox gamepad, it does exactly that. And when I switch back to mouse and keyboard, it works the exact same. So the way this widget works is essentially it works like an image. So like one of no, not checkbox, like one of these. So I could just drag this button image, which is this class essentially, and then I have input binding. I cannot set things like cannot custom set the image, or the slate brush, anything like that. However, we can just set the binding. So when I, for example, set this to fire, then it automatically switches to this image of my left mouse button. Or if I, let's say, want to do a jump, which is a spacebar, it shows this image. Another thing to keep in mind is that the input detection even works in editor. This is more or less it's not really a wanted effect. It was more or less through happenstance, but it doesn't crash the engine or anything. It's nothing bad. It just it works because in this case it is bound to the module, to the game module. As you can also see, there's a lot of request async load called with empty or null assets. Essentially, what I'm doing right now to reset the texture in case I have no textures, I set it to null pointer, which we're going to probably just we're going to fix that as well, I guess. So let's begin, and we begin by first of all closing this window. We're going to open the Unreal Engine screen once again, hit launch. I'm going to open my code path for this project because I don't know everything on the off the top of my head, and I don't want to embarrass myself here. So in this case, I'll just and we'll call this button label project. Name isn't really important. Let's see, yeah, so let me just open up edit with Notepad. Exactly. So just put this to the side. We've got a new project. Project settings. Okay, so what we'll begin with is we'll just create a simple class. I'd like to begin with the input processing, and then we'll go through it step by step. So first of all, we're doing the input processing, or the input device changing, so we can get notified whenever we're changing from gamepad to keyboard. We do not know what kind of gamepad we have, so in this case you don't know if it's an Xbox gamepad or a PlayStation gamepad or Steam controller or I don't know, Switch Pro controller, whatever. You don't get that kind of information with the method I'm showing you. You could theoretically probably get it through like the raw input plugin or something like that, but I don't know how exactly that would work, and I don't want to make any wild guesses right now. So in this case, I'm going to create a private class. It does not need to be exposed to other modules. And so let's just call this input detection processor. As you saw, this is not a U class. This is not a not any sort of thing that needs this kind of macros. It's not really exposed to the engine, although it is an engine class, and I'm going to show you which one it is. And if we just go here, and we're going to search for input processor. Let's hope we'll find something. Yeah, there it is. This is the class we're using, or we will be using. As you can see, it is part of the Slate module, and it has a bunch of, these are all pure virtual functions, so you have to implement all of them, otherwise you cannot compile this. So I'm using Rider here. Yeah, I like it. I'm not affiliated with JetBrains or anything, but I like it. It's fast and it does everything that I want it to. Okay. So let's just give it the time to do its things and go through everything before we do anything stupid. We want to maybe add a few things. So first of all, we'd like to use Slate. While I'm at it, I could probably... Yes, okay. We also want to add... oops. Okay, yeah, let's... no. New string. No. Exactly. And well, theoretically, that should already be everything we need. Is there a space? Why? Okay. Let it fix that one real quickly. Okay. Okay. So, what we want to inherit from is the input processor, as I've input processor, which is defined within the framework application. So what we probably want to do as well is it's either application or application core. Nope. Go to the header. Include. First of all, we're going to include input state.h because we'll need it. And we're also going to include framework, application, and input processor. Okay. So in this case, we're going to to use e-input devices, which is like an enum that goes through a bunch of input devices. We're only going to use keyboard and gamepad, but yeah, in theory, you could probably current input device. So this variable will just be able for us to, so with that variable, we're just going to be able to compare if we have changed from previous input to another input method. We're also going to declare, delegate one param, an input device, changed delegate input devices. Good stuff. Okay. So now in this case, writer is already telling me, hey, do you want to override certain things? Yes, I want. And yeah, we're just essentially going to override everything in here. So let's handle analog input event. And what we're going to say is add the arguments f slate application reference slate up and f analog input event constant reference in analog input event. What kind of context actions do we have? Because can we not no, okay, if we just go into the input processor file, handle motion detected, I don't even think we need that one. So the things we really need is also tick, you need to override otherwise because it's pure virtual. What we really need is key down and analog and mouse move and probably also mouse button down. I don't know, we will check. So in this case, override, go back to here. The analog input, we already have that one. Mouse move, this one probably wanna use override. And we're going to have a look if we really need this one. I think, well, in theory, if you want to use mouse wheel, we just add this one as well. Okay. Override. Great. Great stuff. Something I've actually forgotten to show you, but I will show you later on within the other project, is that you need to have these textures ready yourself. I cannot supply you with any textures because I don't have them myself. Well, I do have them, but I haven't made them myself. I've bought a pack with, I don't know, a couple hundred textures. So you either need to create it your own, or there's also a free, at least for like Gamepad inputs, there is a free resource that I have seen. And yeah, so I'm going to return false, simple because I don't know what happens if I return true. And hello, what was that? When we return false, it's like, oh, we haven't handled it. Like, what is this? Return false. Okay, whatever. So the reality of it is, tick, we don't use it, I don't use it, we just will have to override it, otherwise things are going wrong. I don't know, so it's pure virtual, we have to override it, we don't use it, we're not going to. So so what I'm going to start with is that I will make this one by default input devices keyboard. Now, as you did see probably, we'll just go here, input devices. So you've got gamepad, keyboard, mouse. There's also non-Oculus Touch, tablet, fingers, any spatial device, and HTC View, Vive want view. We're only going to use keyboard and gamepad. We're not going to use like mouse specifically, simply because in my worldview there's only keyboard and mouse as input. And then there's also gamepad as its own. So yeah, that's just what is going to happen. So because we don't want to spam any our functions here, what we're going to do is if, and then in analog input event, get key is gamepad key, and then we're going to say, and if the current input device is not input device is gamepad, right? So what this means is that I don't know if there are other analog inputs, like maybe your mouse is an analog input, although we do have the mouse down event, which is why I don't really want to bother with it too much. Another thing we possibly want to check is in analog input event, get analog value, and then if it is bigger than, let's say, 0.115 or so, 0.15, I don't know, 155, just have a little bit of tolerance in case so that not any like small little input will trigger the texture to change, because like that could be a bit frustrating, right? If you have like input drift or anything from your gamepad, there are some values. It doesn't always have to be 0.00, right? And we just wanna cut out the noise a bit. Maybe 1.5 is a bit much, but you can go ahead with whatever value you like. What we're then going to do is we set the input device to gamepad, and also we need to create a variable. So this one we're just going to make private, and then we go public, and another public for our functions, and within here input device change delegate on input, or it's input device change delegate. Okay, and then input device change execute if bound, and current input device. Also in this case we're just going to log warning, and then function. So what this log, okay, what this log is essentially going to log this, what I've just marked it, so it's the function. In this case it's of class input detection processor, and then handle analog input event. So we just know whenever which function is called, and we can simply copy it without having to change anything. And we don't necessarily want to have a breakpoint on this, because there may be times where we get to call this a bit more often. Okay, so handle key down event. From my experience, key down is called with a gamepad key or a keyboard key, doesn't matter, which is why we're not going to bother with the handle with the probably mouse button down event will be in there as well. So yes, so what we're going to do is essentially the same as above, right? So if the in key event get key is gamepad key and the current input device is not gamepad. In this case, we don't need to check for any noise value from our analog inputs. So just going to copy this one. Now, in this case, we're just going to return false. There already. We could then also like else if and then in key event get key gamepad key and just that's not what I wanted to do. If this is not a gamepad key and current input device is not of keyboard, you know, going to set this to keyboard, and yeah, it's just going to underline this because we're not using the boolean if it was executed or not, because in reality we don't really care. We just want to know that if it's not bound, then don't execute it. We don't care about if it did execute or not. Mouse move event, we're just essentially going to use the same thing as we did with the above. Now here we don't have to check if key or anything, so the only thing we're going to check if current input device no is not of keyboard and mouse event. So there is a get cursor delta size, and then if that one is bigger than like 2, we're going to do the same thing. UI log, and the same with the mouse wheel. Well, with the mouse wheel we only have to check if the current input device, because input device is keyboard, and just do this. Now we still have to register this one thing, which is why we're going to once again create a game module, something I did it probably every tutorial I've made yet. But it's just generally helpful to have a game module. You can do lots of things with it, good things, bad things, I don't know. So what we're going to do is first of all we're going to include module manager, and then F button label game module public module interface, and if you just go there we have startup module, shutdown module, and there's also if game module, something we're going to override. Where am I here? So public. They're all public functions. Right, startup module, override, shutdown module, override, base game module, const override, return true. This is a game module. Then what we're going to do in here, there's already this. In our case, we don't want the F default game module implementation, but we want our F button label game module, and then we're also void F button label game module starter, and probably also want to implement the shutdown module. We will need both of them. So in this case, auto slate application get. And so what this will do is it will get us the slate application. We should probably check if is initialized and do our things in there, and then oh yeah, what we need as well is in here we need to have a little shared pointer of our what is it called, input detection processor. Input process. We're going to forward declare it here. Input processor, then we're going to include it within here. Include input detection processor. And so input processor equals make shared input detection processor and register input preprocessor, and in our case we're just going to do this here, add on shutdown module. Going to do the same thing if slate application is initialized, then we want to do essentially slate app slate application get. We probably also want to know if input processor is valid. And what we're then going to do is slate app unregister input preprocessor, and it's the same thing. Reset it and everything will be great. So what this should do is, in theory, if I hit compile, Control Shift B, and we haven't done any errors, which, yeah, okay, see. Where's my build.cs? So let's just, woo! Let's not delete too much. Did work. I didn't get the sound, so let's just restart the engine. Button level project, as you can see, I'm using 4.25.1. It's binary version of the launcher. And in theory, what we should see is handle key down event, handle mouse move event, analog input, analog input, yeah. So this is because so mouse button down event is not being fired, so we have to add that one still. But as you can see, so I'm using Gamepad here, analog stick, okay. Now I'm hitting G, handle key down. So with this, we always know now when what input device roughly, like what kind of, is it a keyboard on mouse or a, well, we don't use mouse, but is it a keyboard or a gamepad? And just for completion, we're going to still add the last one. It's the mouse down, I think, handle mouse button down event. We don't need the mouse button up or the button up event really, so just going to copy this one and then override. No. Return false. Do exactly that. Control Shift B. So just a little something to notice if you don't register or unregister. So this should mouse button down event. Yeah, you can see. Okay. Ooh, I didn't know that. So yeah, this just works. We can now, in theory, just delete all these logs because we know these work without a doubt. And oh yeah, one thing we might want to do, however, we're going to do this in the next part of this tutorial. This is just empty, but don't care. Rebind package is not possible. All right, well, then it's not possible. Just going to restart. Yeah, next part of this tutorial we're going to create the widget for this thing, and also what we're going to do is, well, we could just do it now. We are quickly, first of all, we're going to create a on input device change input devices new input device. And also what we're going to do is let's also make this one devices. We're going to need this one later because I am going to do some functionality within this class. You could in theory do it in another class, but I just found it handy to do it in there. On input device changed. Well, when we start up the module, we're just going to do it, make it the input device is keyboard. And we're also going to bind input processor, delegate bind raw this on input device changed. Great. So within this we could in theory just log so running input device changed. All right. And then we're just gonna restart, and hopefully we haven't done anything that breaks us yet. Okay. It's a enum class. Let's not forget this one. Just do a little change. So by default we set it to keyboard, and now it's changed. Let's change again. Gamepad, keyboard, gamepad, keyboard, gamepad, keyboard, gamepad, keyboard. Apparently I have forgotten to do. I have forgotten to remove one log from within there, haven't I? Yes, it's there. Right. Hit save, and that's it. That is the first part of this tutorial on creating the label widget. The second part, which I will hopefully be releasing within this week. I have a busy schedule right now, and even with everything that's going on right now. So, well, see you then, and hope you have a great time. Maybe you can figure out some useful use with this alone. But yes, so the widget and everything that comes with it comes hopefully within this week. I hope I get it done by at least, well, Friday, maybe tomorrow even, but I will not make any promises on there. Okay. Have a nice day. Bye.